I come in from the south side with too much weight on me and no good way to carry it. The pack frame digs into my shoulders. One duffel keeps bumping my leg. The folded handcart is tied flat against the frame and catches every branch that leans into the trail. I stop before I reach the outer fence and get down low under a guava tree. From there I can see the roofs through the leaves. 2 long barracks, mess hall, admin building near the gate, motor pool with half the roof gone, concrete pads out back where storage bladders or tents used to sit. The layout makes sense to me right away. I spent years reading inventory sheets, route maps, fuel logs, and camp diagrams for the guard. Not this camp every day, but enough places built almost the same way that I know where boring things usually sit. Water points, drainage, supply lanes, service access, places nobody looks at twice until something stops working. I stay there and watch longer than I want to. I don't see smoke, I don't see laundry. I don't see birds popping up and settling again from human movement. Wind pushes a torn strip of chain link against a post and I hear that light metal tap every few seconds. Insects are loud in the brush. A roof panel bangs somewhere deeper in the camp when the gusts hit from the east. That's all I get. I don't go near the gate. Gates pull people in. If somebody has eyes on the place from a distance, the gate is where he looks first. I follow the fence west until I find an old cut where somebody opened a square big enough to pass scrap through. The cut edges are rusted over. Grass has grown around the bottom wire. Old mud under it holds half a boot print and a drag line from something long and heavy. Not fresh. Not fresh is good. I slide the pack through, push the duffel after it, then crawl inside and leave the fence looking the way I found it. The yard feels stripped but not dead. Easy salvage is gone. Doors hang open on storage rooms with nothing left inside. Window units were ripped out years ago. Copper has been taken from anywhere a person could reach with simple tools. What's left is structure, concrete, roof area, buried runs, a place where old work might cover new work if I keep mine small and ugly. That's enough to make me keep walking. The first thing that makes me stop is a row of barracks doors chained from the outside. Not one door, 3. The chains are looped through the pull handles and around metal rails welded to the wall. One padlock has been broken open. One chain is gone, but the door stayed shut. I stay off the porch and study the gaps around the frames and windows. No movement. No faces at the glass. No fresh scratching in the paint. I've seen buildings hold quiet things for a long time. I don't trust quiet buildings. The ones out on the roads are easy to read compared to the ones that stay inside. Roadwalkers drag, turn late, drift towards sound. The shaded ones do something else. Heat makes them slow down. Shade lets them sit for hours without giving you a sign. In Utuado, I walked into a pharmacy and saw what I thought were torn bags behind a shelf. My first pass down the aisle didn't wake either one. My second pass on the same floor line did. Same tiles. Same weight hitting the same place twice. Both of them came up together and blocked the aisle before I got halfway back to the counter. I got out. One hand tore my shirt and took skin off my side. Since then, I treat every cool building like it has company even when it looks empty. I work the outside first. Water point behind the mess hall has a cracked standpipe, 2 concrete troughs full of leaf sludge, and a buried line heading downhill. Behind the motor pool, I find the steel frame where a fuel bladder used to sit. The bladder is gone. The cage remains, bolted to a slab and half hidden in weeds. I mark it in my head for storage later. The parade ground is split by weeds and runoff cuts. At the far edge, I spot the mouth of a storm drain packed with branches, trash, and a young fig tree growing out of the mess. That gets my attention, but I don't crawl into a drain until I know the rest of the surface around it. The admin building looks like the smallest first test, so I circle it once and go in through a side office where the door hangs crooked on one hinge. The floor is cooler right away. Dust covers most of it. A drag mark cuts across the hallway toward a records room where somebody pulled a filing cabinet over months or years ago. I move slow and stop at every doorway. Desks overturned, pulped folders, ceiling tiles down, water stains that run from one wall to the next. In the back office, I find a metal cabinet split open and empty. Near the hall, a desk sits upside down with one chair jammed under it. I step around it, cross into another room. then turn back toward the corridor. My boot lands on the same seam between tiles I used on the way in. A hand snaps out from under the desk by the hall and locks on my pant leg above the ankle. I slam the pry bar down on the wrist and twist out hard. The thing drags half its body forward. Skin on the face is tight and dark from years inside. The eyes are open but flat. Another one rises in the next room and hits the wall on the way up. No scream, no fast rush. Both come on with that slow inside building push, quiet and steady. I back out of the office, cut across the entry room, and yank the hanging door shut with the pry bar hooked through the handle. The latch doesn't catch. I thread cord through the handle and tie it off to the frame hard enough to buy me time if they lean on it. Then, I move away from the building and sit in the sun with my back to a wall, looking at the windows until I've counted past 100. No more shapes come to the glass. No other rooms stir. Good. The rule holds here too. Inside shade, repeated floor vibration wakes them faster than one quick noise. I look at my ankle. Fabric is torn. Skin is scraped where the grip twisted the cloth. No bite, no deep break. I wash it from my bottle, wipe it clean with a rag, and keep moving. I go back to the drain after that. I clear a hand-wide gap in the debris first and lower my flashlight on a cord. The beam lands on silt, wet leaves, a plastic bottle, and tunnel wall before the drain bends out of sight. Big enough to crawl, I strip off the pack, push the pry bar ahead of me, and go in on elbows and knees. 10 feet in, the drain opens into something better than I hoped for. Not a bunker, not some secret room. A service crawl space where the drain passes under cable trays and old conduit. Concrete block, low ceiling, dirty floor, dry section on the high side, dry and hidden. That's enough to change the whole camp for me. I back out and go in again with a little tape strip so I can mark the bend and find it fast with low light. Then I crawl the chamber end to end. One side narrows into another drain run. One wall has old access panels leading up into utility shafts, all shut and rusted in place. Cable trays overhead are stripped bare except for one run of dead conduit and a few broken hangers. The floor is covered in silt, bottle caps, wire, insect shells, and old trash washed down over years. No standing water on the high side, no strong rot, no fresh footprints. I sit there in the dark for a minute and measure the place against what I'm carrying and what I can move by hand. It'll work if I build it slow. I don't drag everything underground on the first day. That's how people bury themselves with their own gear. I move in one night's worth. Bedroll, water, pistol, flashlight, pot, dry food, tool roll, tarp. The rest I hide outside the perimeter under cut fronds and a broken plastic pallet near a thicket north of the camp. If I lose the drain to flooding or noise, I don't want every last thing I own trapped in the same hole. The rest of the daylight goes into cleaning. I fill feed sacks with silt and dump them out behind the motor pool, where washed dirt already sits in a pile. I pull out broken glass, rusted tie wire, cracked panel covers, one dead rat dried flat, and enough loose junk to make crawling dangerous if I ever have to move fast in the dark. Ants crawl into my sleeves. Mosquitoes find every patch of skin when I back out to dump the sacks. I keep working until I can lay the tarp on the high side without touching damp concrete. Dinner is cold beans, dried plantain, and warm water that tastes old. After dark, I sit with the flashlight off and listen to the camp settle over me. Near midnight, I hear 2 impacts overhead. Not random debris, spaced out, one, then another farther down the line. Could be a loose door under wind. Could be weight shifting in one of the barracks. I keep my hand on the pistol and wait in the dark until the sound stops. No light comes down the drain. No voice. I stay awake a long time anyway. Morning comes hot early, so I hit the mess hall first. Kitchen buildings carry bulky things nobody values until there's no store left to go to. I get in through a serving window with the frame already torn out. The refrigeration units in the back are dead shells. Copper and motors were taken years ago, but insulation panels are still fixed inside some of the cabinets. Metal racks too. I cut 2 panels free with a hacksaw blade wrapped in cloth. Slow, ugly work. The blade squeals every time it bites. I stop after each cut and listen into the hall. Nothing answers. In a dry storeroom I find steel shelving, 3 sealable food tubs, and a maintenance board with faded tags hanging on hooks. One tag says, crawl access C. Another says, drain flush valve. I pocket both. In a desk drawer near the pantry, I find a binder swollen with mildew. Most of it is gone to mush, but the middle pages hold a partial utility diagram, plumbing notes, and a list of routine checks from before the fall. It doesn't give me the whole camp, but it gives me enough to stop guessing on a few lines. I also find a furniture dolly with one wheel barely holding together. I use it anyway. It gets the tubs and insulation panels about 20 yards before the wheel splits and folds under the load. After that, I drag everything to the drain by hand. That costs me an hour I didn't want to spend in open yard under noon heat. I spend it anyway. By mid-afternoon, I have the first choke points built in the crawl space. No solid door. A solid door makes noise and makes a person think he can slam trouble out. I wedge one insulation panel so anybody coming in has to kneel and turn. A second one goes deeper in, narrowing the path to shoulder width. I line the edges with rubber strips and cloth so metal or plastic won't scrape loud if I hit it in the dark. It'll slow anybody who comes in fast. It'll slow me too. Good. I need the place to punish me when I get careless. Water comes next. The cracked standpipe gives me nothing when I try the valve. No surprise there. The buried line beside it tells me more than the fixture itself. One branch runs downhill toward the service side of camp. If there's a buried tank or cistern left intact, it might still hold water. I don't dig on that the same day. Digging takes time, noise, and energy. I go for the easy catch first. Behind the mess hall, I rig sheet metal and gutter scrap under an overhang and lead it into a cut drum tucked behind brush and broken wall. It won't survive hard wind unless I keep fixing it. It doesn't need to last forever. It needs to fill once. Food is the next problem, and that one never leaves. Behind the western barracks, I find volunteer cassava growing in a patch that used to be open soil. The plants are thin and crowded by thorn brush, but they're alive. I clear around a few and leave the rest looking wild. A neat garden gets noticed. A messy patch can pass for neglect. I set 2 wire snares near the fence for mongoose and a rat trap behind the mess hall with stale cassava mash for bait. I don't count on any of it. It's work that might pay later, that's all. I also split my dry food into different caches. One tub goes under a culvert outside the fence. One goes under the old fuel bladder frame where weeds cover the opening. One stays with me in the drain. If a flood, search, or fire wipes out one spot, I don't want to lose the whole line at once. I did inventory for too long to keep everything in one pile. Late in the day, I find the first fresh sign of other people. Near the motor pool fence, one strand of wire has been clipped clean at knee height. Not storm damage, clean cut. The metal shows bright under orange dust. A few feet away, in shaded dirt by a broken trailer axle, there's a boot print bigger than mine with the heel worn off to one side. Only one print clear enough to read. No second one, no cigarette end, no ash, no fresh food wrapper. I squat there for a while and look at the ground, the fence, the motor pool doors, the road line beyond the camp. Then I brush out my own approach marks and back away without touching the clipped wire. That night I sort the things I'd need if I had to stay hidden below ground for 2 full days. Cold food, water tablets from old guard stock, extra socks, candle stub, small radio with a cracked speaker, paper map in plastic. I don't cook. I don't boil water. I eat dry in the dark. A while after sunset, I hear a flat hit from one of the chained barracks. Then another. Same door maybe. Maybe a window. No voices. No shuffle across the yard. The sound comes from inside and stops on its own. When the air cools, the shaded ones move more. That goes on the list with the floor vibration rule. Rain starts after midnight. First a few hard drops through leaves. Then the sky opens and the whole camp changes at once. I pull the flashlight cloth over the lens and move what I can to the high side of the crawl space. Food tub, tool roll, bedroll, ammo tin. Runoff starts touching the low channel within minutes. That gets my attention faster than anything overhead. Storm drains do one job. If I forget that, the place I pick to hide in turns into a pipe trying to carry me out with the trash. I crawl to the inlet and shove the pry bar into the clog at the mouth. Brown water surges around my arms and carries leaves past me in clumps. I clear branches one at a time until the main flow breaks through and the level inside stops climbing so fast. Then I go back to the chamber and start lifting everything again. One food tub handle snaps while I'm moving it. The tub drops into shallow runoff and spills rice packets, dried beans, and 2 jars into muddy water. I catch one jar. The other rolls into the lower channel and vanishes into the dark. I don't waste time after it. I fill silt sacks and stack them where the chamber widens, making a low barrier to slow debris and float junk away from my sleeping area. Mud works into my gloves and makes every knot harder. Overhead, the storm bangs loose metal all over camp. Mixed in with that, I hear heavier hits from one of the barracks. Doors, maybe. Bodies leaning against something from the inside, maybe. I keep working until the water near my tarp levels out and holds. Then I sit in the dark and listen. Rain covers smaller sounds. Good for me if somebody's far off. Bad for me if somebody's close. I keep waiting for boots on pavement above the drain mouth. I never get them. Morning comes grey, wet, and bright enough to show me what the storm changed. My catch drum behind the mess hall is half full. Good. The hidden stash outside the fence shifted under the tarp but held. Better than I expected. The drain mouth is wider now after runoff stripped away half the clog. Bad. Easier access works both ways. I spend the first dry hour dragging broken concrete, branches, and old debris back around the opening so it looks naturally choked without blocking the flow. After that, I climb the rise behind the motor pool and look over the camp from wet bamboo. Fresh disturbance reads clear after rain. The side door on the admin building moves on the cord I tied across it. Pull. Relax. Pull. Something inside is pressing on it from time to time. One upper window on the nearest chained barracks has cracked outward from the bottom edge since yesterday. No face at it. No arm. Only a new gap where there wasn't one before. I stay up on that rise a little longer and keep watching the admin door move on the cord. Pull. Relax. Pull again. It has a rhythm now. Not fast. Not hard. Whatever is inside leans on it, loses balance, then comes back to it after a short pause. The cracked barracks window bothers me more. Windows don't change by themselves unless heat splits old glass or something presses from the other side. The break has a fresh edge along the lower frame. Rain washed the dust off the sill, so the line stands out plain. I keep my eyes there until the bamboo starts dripping on my neck and the wet leaves under my boots begin to slide. I climb down slow and cut across behind the motor pool instead of taking the open yard. First stop is the snares. Both are empty. One has been tripped and bent flat, which means something small got in, fought hard, then got loose, or a bigger animal nosed it and ruined the wire. The rat trap behind the mess hall has a fat roof rat in it, and 2 ants already working the eyes. I wrap the trap in a rag, carry it to the drain, and deal with it below ground where no bird circles over me and no smell hangs in open air. The meat won't go far, but it fills one meal and gives me fat I haven't had in days. The catchment behind the mess hall needs work after the storm. One of the gutter pieces has twisted loose, and the drum shifted 3 inches in the mud. I reset both and drag more broken block around the base to keep it from walking when the next rain hits. The water in the drum is brown with roof grit and leaf dust. That's fine. Brown I can work with. I pour it through cloth into one of the food tubs, add a second cloth layer, then set up the filter stack I used at my last hide. Gravel at the bottom, then sand, then charcoal from old cook fires crushed fine and wrapped in a strip of shirt. It won't make bad water good on its own. It only takes the load down before I boil it. Boiling takes fuel. Fuel is never free. By mid-morning, I go back to the standpipe behind the mess hall with the partial utility diagram from the binder and the tag-marked drain flush valve. The page is warped and hard to read, but the line weights are enough. The standpipe branches toward a lower service run, and the flush point sits downhill from where I'm standing, close to the laundry slab, and maybe 10 yards east of the western barracks. I pace it twice, then start probing the ground with a piece of rebar. On the 7th probe, I hit metal under 2 inches of dirt and root mat. A valve box lid sits there under mud and weeds. The cover takes both hands and the pry bar to lift. Inside is a corroded wheel valve, a short vertical pipe, and a smell like wet pennies and trapped rot. Not good water, not clean, but there's something down there. I don't crank the valve open right away. Corroded fittings like that crack when a person gets greedy. I brush the box out first, clean the threads, drip a little cooking oil I've been hoarding onto the stem, and work it a fraction at a time. It takes 20 minutes to move far enough that I hear a wet suck from below. Another quarter turn gives me a thin spit of dark water that coughs out, runs rusty for a few seconds, then stops. I close it again and sit back on my heels. That means a buried line or tank is holding something. Enough head pressure is gone that it won't feed upward on its own, but a hand pump or siphon might pull from it. That changes my week. The hand pump comes from 3 separate finds and half a day of trial. A length of plastic tubing from the mess hall dish station. A check valve from a ruined backpack sprayer I found in a maintenance closet. 1 broom handle, 1 rubber flap cut from a torn mat. And a lot of time cursing at pieces that don't fit the first time or the second. I'm not building anything pretty. I'm making a stupid, ugly tube that can pull shallow water without me lying flat in mud and sucking rust into my mouth. When I finally get it working, the first gallon comes up black with sediment. The second runs dark brown. By the 4th gallon, the water turns the color of weak coffee. That's not safe. It is usable after settling, filtering, and a hard boil. I fill 1 tub, seal it, and leave the sludge to settle while I go back to work on the crawl space. That afternoon I start on ventilation. Smoke above ground pulls people. Smoke near a shelter gets a person buried. I'm not building a fancy hidden flue. I'm using what the camp already has. One of the dead conduits in the crawl space runs toward the drainage side and ends near a narrow crack where roots have lifted block off the lower wall. I clear the crack by hand and find it opens into a shallow soil void that slopes toward the drainage ditch outside the main yard. That gives me a route for warm air if I keep the heat source low and weak. I attach tubing in sections, wrap the joints with cloth and wire, and test it with a candle stub. The flame flickers the right direction. Good. Not strong enough for full cooking. Enough for warming food at night and boiling small batches if the air outside is cooler than the chamber. The rat goes into the pot with cassava, 1 pinch of salt, and half a handful of wild oregano I found near the fence. It smells better than anything I've had in 10 days. I keep the flame low and sit beside the vent line with my hand near the joint seams, feeling for hot spots that could cook the plastic or leak scent back into the chamber. The vent works, but not clean. Grease smoke clings low. I kill the flame before the meat is as tender as I want and eat it half tough. Good enough. I wipe the pot with a strip of cassava and save the greasy water in a jar. There are meals where waste and comfort are the same thing. This isn't one of them. Night settles hard after rain. Frogs start up in the drainage ditch. Insects get loud enough to cover small sounds, and that usually helps me. I lie on the tarp and listen to the camp over me. The admin door drags once across its frame. One of the barracks gives 2 flat impacts from inside, spaced far apart. Then I hear something else. Not from the camp. From the road beyond the fence. Metal against metal in 3 quick taps. Then a pause. Then 1 tap more. Tool sound. Human tool sound. I sit up, kill the candle, and stay still long enough for my knees to start hurting. Nothing follows. No beam sweeps the drain mouth. No voices carry through. It might be far off. It might be closer than I think. I sleep with the pistol under my folded shirt and wake before dawn. The next morning I move every sign of cooking. Pot wiped and sealed. Grease jar buried in a sack of dirt. Charcoal filter tub shifted away from the main chamber so it won't smell when the air warms. Then, I make a slow circuit outside the fence, wide enough to read the road without walking on it. On the east side, I find old tire marks cut into soft ground from the storm. Not fresh enough to be from last night. Fresh enough to be from this week. Narrow tires. Maybe a motorcycle with a trailer. Maybe a handcart with rubber wheels if the load was heavy. Beside the marks, I find a strip of blue plastic tied to a branch at eye height. Trail marking. Not mine. I cut the plastic free and pocket it. Then I stand there longer than I want, staring down the road through wet brush and trying to decide what kind of crew uses marker strips inland. Good crews mark quiet and take them down on the way out. Sloppy crews leave them and make somebody else's work easier. Either way, somebody is running a loop through this part of the island, and he thinks the route is worth finding again. I spend the rest of the day making the camp look poorer than it is. The catchment comes down until evening. The visible drum gets moved behind a slab where a quick scan won't catch it. The snares come in. One food cache shifts farther off under a rotten culvert, where roots and flood trash make the ground ugly enough that nobody wants to crawl in unless he's desperate. I scatter leaf litter back over my track to the drain and drag a branch over the root twice from different angles. Then, I walk through the admin building's side yard on purpose and step hard on the same cracked stretch of porch before I back away. Inside, something hits the door once and stops. I wait. Nothing else follows. Good. The rule holds even through the wall. Repeated disturbance on the same line wakes them faster than general noise. By late afternoon, the heat climbs high enough that the camp feels empty from edge to edge. That is when I finally get my first look at the crew. I spot them from the bamboo rise again, 3 people moving along the west fence where the old cut panel hangs loose. One man in a faded red shirt, one woman with a burlap sack tied over her pack to keep rain off, one shorter man pushing a 2-wheel handcart with no load on it yet. They don't talk much. They don't look around like tourists. Red shirt checks the fence, steps through the cut, and signals with 2 fingers. The woman follows. The shorter man brings the cart in backward, so the wheels don't snag the bottom wire. That tells me enough right there. Not first-timers, not wandering hungry families, a working salvage crew. I stay on the rise with my body low and count their tools before I think about anything else. Red shirt has bolt cutters and a pry bar. The woman carries a machete on one hip and what looks like a short shotgun slung flat against her pack. The shorter man keeps the cart and wears a pistol low under a loose shirt. None of them moves with the confidence of somebody claiming territory. They move with the attention of people who want value and don't want to pay for it in noise or delay. I know the type. I used to hand out fuel allocations to drivers who came in with the same eyes during storm season, focused on load, time, route, and weather. Human trouble that can count. They start with the motor pool. Good choice if a person wants easy steel and maybe old tools hidden in corners. Red shirt cuts a hanging section of chain. The woman takes the side door. The shorter man stays outside with the cart and watches the lane. I stay still and let them work. My first urge is to shift something, make a sound, steer them away. I push that down. Early moves get a person red. Better to watch how they search and what they value. An hour passes while they strip anything loose and worth carrying. Sheet aluminum, a bracket assembly from the old bladder frame, 2 lengths of copper somebody missed in the roof skeleton, a crate of mixed fasteners from a locked cabinet they force open. They don't touch the barracks. They don't even walk close to the chained doors. Good crews read danger fast. The woman looks at the admin building twice and leaves it alone. The shorter man scans the yard every time one of the others drops metal into the cart. I don't get a clean look at his face, but I hear his voice once when the wheel catches in a crack. Lift your side. The woman answers with one word. Got it. Puerto Rican Spanish with mountain edges, same as half the inland camps left on the island. They leave before sunset with 1 full cart and no sign they found me. I stay on the rise until the light goes flat and the insects change pitch. Then I wait longer, then longer than that. Only when dark has settled enough to make the yard 1 block of shadow do I move. I don't go to the fence cut they used. I circle the whole outer edge looking for what they read and what they missed. At the motor pool they took the easiest metal. Near the fuel bladder frame they kicked aside weeds and exposed the dirt above one of my buried tins, but didn't keep digging. That near miss sits on me the rest of the walk. Back underground, I lay my supplies out and force myself to touch every single thing I own. Water, food, tools, ammo, medical roll, spare clothes, map, binders. If the crew comes back tomorrow and gets curious, I need to know what moves first and what can be abandoned in place. The answer isn't comforting. Water is heavy, food is bulky. The crawl space only works if I don't have to strip it in one rush. So I split again. 1 bag of dry food goes into an upper access niche in the crawl space wall. Another goes to the culvert cache before dawn. The medical roll stays on me from now on. No more setting it down. At first light I crawl out, shoulder the smaller bag, and head for the culvert. Halfway there, I stop behind a wall of tall grass. Voices. Close, not inside camp. outside the fence near the road. I drop flat and listen. Red shirt says, "Back afternoon, shade side first." The woman asks, "You want the admin block?" He answers, "Not till we clear the back lots." The shorter man says something I miss, then all three move off. Their footsteps fade south. I wait a full count of 300 before I move again. Noon, shade side first. That gives me half a day, maybe less, to change the camp under them. I don't try to erase my whole presence. Impossible. I work on route and time instead. First, I shift the food tin from under the fuel bladder frame to a root hollow 30 yards deeper in brush. Then I go to the admin building and cut the cord I tied across the side door. The door opens 2 inches under pressure and stops on the body leaning against it. Good. Not wide enough to spill anything out. Wide enough that a person searching the place may think it's already partly open and worth a quick look. After that, I cross to the porch of the nearest chained barracks and study the cracked window from below. The lower sash is loose at one corner. I tap the siding near the same wall line twice with the pry bar. Nothing. I tap again on the same stud line. Something inside shifts, and the broken window gives a dry tick against the frame. I back away at once. My plan isn't to unleash the building. I don't want the camp full of wanderers. I want the crew to spend attention near places that fight back when pressed. The admin building is one. The chained barracks are another. The motor pool isn't. So I move the easiest visible salvage out of the motor pool and leave a better line of sight toward the admin block. A stack of metal shelving from the mess hall goes near the side yard where somebody can spot it from open ground. I leave it standing awkward and half valuable, the way abandoned work looks when a person gets interrupted. Then, I get off the yard and climb the rise before the sun turns over the camp. They come back earlier than they said. That tells me they either changed plans or never meant the noon schedule the way I heard it. Red shirt spots the shelving first. He grins at something the woman says and walks straight to it. Good. He checks the weight, looks toward the handcart, then glances at the admin block. The shorter man goes that way on his own, pistol out now, moving from shade to shade with the caution I don't like seeing in people who steal for a living. He reaches the side door, notices it standing slightly off the frame, and pauses. He says, "Somebody opened this." Red shirt answers without looking up. Then somebody got nothing worth taking. The shorter man doesn't go in right away. He taps the frame with the pistol barrel, waits, then pushes the door wider with his foot. The body behind it shifts and bumps the wood. He jerks back. The woman laughs once, short and dry, and says, "Dead room, leave it." He doesn't. He steps into the threshold, leans, and looks along the hall. Then he takes one step inside. A second. I can't see his face from the rise, but I see his shoulders tighten. He backs out slow and says something too low for me to catch. Red shirt walks over. The woman follows after setting the shelving down. They stand at the admin door and talk for a minute, all low voices. Then they leave it and return to work. Good enough. Not a fight, not a panic. But now the building is in their heads. That helps me. They spend the next 2 hours on the back lots and water point. The woman notices the standpipe box I opened yesterday. She kneels by it long enough to make me tense all through my back and legs. Then she spits into the mud, says, "Tank's sour," and walks off. Good. Foul water scares people who have other places to go. It only traps people with nowhere else. Near the end of the day, the shorter man makes the first move that puts a hand on me without knowing I'm there. He leaves the cart to the others and cuts toward the drainage side of camp alone, slow and broad, scanning the ground. He isn't after metal. He's reading sign. He crouches near the brush where I used to drag the catch drum before I hid it. He touches the mud around the old base marks, studies the flattened weeds, then looks toward the ditch line. I stay low under bamboo and keep my eyes on his hands. If he pulls a marker ribbon or a scrap of cloth from the brush, I know I missed something. He doesn't. He looks long enough to get suspicious, then heads back to the crew. That night I move the catchment again, this time in pieces, and set the drum low in a wash north of camp where runoff already pools in rain. It's a worse place for carrying water. It's a better place for hiding the setup. I also start a second exit from the crawl space by working one of the rusted access panels in the wall. The bolts are fused. I soak them with more oil, scrape the threads, Tap each head lightly with the butt of the pry bar and work them a fraction at a time. It takes hours and shreds one knuckle when the wrench slips. I wrap the cut tight and keep going. By midnight, I have the panel loose enough to see the shaft behind it. Vertical, narrow, ladder brackets on one side, rusted and missing every third rung. No daylight from above. Good. Hidden is good. Hidden also means hard to use in a rush. On the third day, the crew brings a fourth person. I hear him before I see him, coughing hard outside the fence, while the others wrestle the cart through the cut. He's older, broad through the shoulders, and limps on the right leg. He carries no pack, only a long-handled wrecking bar and a coil of rope. That worries me more than extra firepower would. Rope means hauling. Rope means planned work on heavier material. Planned work means they think the camp has more in it than one easy strip. They go to the western barracks first, not the chained ones with visible damage. The far one with the porch half hidden by brush. I know that building only from the outside. I haven't cleared it. I haven't tested its floors. I haven't wanted to. The broad man uses the wrecking bar under the first window frame while red shirt cuts brush away from the porch. The woman stands off with the shotgun. The shorter man watches the lane. They're setting up a proper pull. I can see the logic. Break a rear window, drag metal bunks or lockers out, never enter if you don't have to. Good method. They get the frame open in 6 minutes. Then the broad man leans in through the opening farther than I expect. He says, "Empty enough." That's the sentence that tells me he's made a mistake. Rooms that look empty from one angle are what catch people in this world. Red shirt tells him to hold up, but the broad man is already inside, stepping over the sill with the wrecking bar first. He moves out of my sight. 2 seconds pass. 4. Then the woman says, "Tavo." No answer. She says it again, louder. The shorter man starts toward the porch. Inside the barracks, something heavy slams once against a wall. A second hit follows closer to the window. The woman backs 2 steps and raises the shotgun. Red shirt reaches the sill and leans, then jerks away so fast he loses his footing on the wet porch. The shorter man gets to the steps as a shape crashes into the broken window from inside. Not through it all the way, hard enough to shake the frame and send more glass down. Another shape comes behind it, jammed by the sill and the first body. The broad man's wrecking bar clatters across the porch and drops into brush. The woman fires once into the room. The sound blows across the whole camp and punches through my ribs even from the rise. Birds rip up out of the trees. Red shirt swears and drags the shorter man back from the steps. The broad man does not come back out through the window. I don't hear him. I don't see him. The woman keeps the shotgun on the opening and takes 2 backward steps toward the yard. Then, another hard hit comes from deeper in the building. Then another from the hall side, as if the first shot woke up every shaded room tied to the same floor line. That one shot changes the camp in a second. The admin building door starts banging under pressure. One of the chained barracks gives a sequence of flat hits from 2 different rooms. The cracked upper window on the nearest barracks punches outward another inch. The salvage crew hears all of it. So do I. This place isn't quiet anymore. Red shirt is the first one to recover. He grabs the handcart, snaps at the woman to move, and yanks the shorter man off the porch line. They fall back hard across the yard, not running blind, but fast enough to say fear took over the math. The woman keeps turning as she moves, gun up, eyes on the barracks. No second shot. Good choice. Noise already did too much. They clear the west lane and head straight for the fence cut. The broad man stays behind in the building. I wait for them to leave the perimeter before I move, but I don't wait long. One shot can carry a long way inland. Wanderers from outside the camp may drift on it by dark. The crew may come back with more people by sunset. The camp's own shaded ones are active now. I slide down off the rise, cross behind the motor pool, and head for the drain at a crouch. I never break into a run. Running on wet concrete gets a person hurt. Hurt underground gets a person finished. Back in the crawl space, I start stripping anything loose from the main chamber and moving it toward the upper access niche and the half-open shaft panel. Water first, medical roll, ammo tin, dry food, map, binder, pot, bedroll last. I don't know if the crew will leave for good after losing one man, or if anger will turn them around and bring them back smarter. I plan for the second one. The afternoon drags long and loud. Overhead, the barracks keep answering the shot in waves. Not one steady frenzy. Bursts of impact when something inside hits a door or wall, then silence, then another burst from a different building. By sunset, the sound settles down. That doesn't mean the place has calmed. It means the shaded ones have pressed back into corners and gone still again. I know the pattern now. Noise wakes them. Delay lets them settle. Settle does not mean safe. I don't light heat that night. I eat dry cassava and cold beans and save every drop of clean water. The cut on my knuckle has swollen under the wrap, and the skin around it feels tight when I flex my hand. I wash it with boiled water from the last batch, lay one of my few antiseptic pads over it, and tie it down with gauze. If it gets hot or streaked, I'll have to decide whether to use antibiotics from my last trade. I only have 4 capsules left and they're old. Nothing about this place lets me spend easy. Sometime after midnight I hear voices outside the fence again. More than 3 now. Men this time, talking low and hard. One says, "He's in there." Another says, "Not after dark." Red shirt answers from closer to the cut. I can't make out every word, but I catch enough. Morning. We pull him if the room's clear. Then we sweep. Sweep. That word settles everything for me. They're not coming back for scrap first. They're coming back to look for whoever else might be using the camp. At grey first light, I go up the shaft panel for the first time. The rungs are rough with scale and one gives a little under my weight. I put almost no load on each one until I know what holds. The shaft rises maybe 10 feet to a hatch plate frozen shut under a utility closet floor. I can't open it without noise I don't want, but the shaft itself helps. It gives me a second pocket to hide supplies and a fallback if the drain gets found. I haul 2 food bags up and wedge them into a dry corner on a bracket shelf. Then I climb back down and head outside before the crew returns. The body recovery starts at the western barracks just after sunrise. This time there are 5 of them. Red shirt, the woman, the shorter man, 2 extra men with gloves, rope, and 1 narrow ladder. No broad man. They set up at the broken window again, but none of them enters. They hook the ladder under the sill as a platform, tie rope loops, and use the wrecking bar from the porch brush to move whatever blocks the opening inside. Twice they jerk back when something hits the frame from the dark. After almost half an hour, they drag the broad man out to the sill and lower him to the porch. He isn't moving on his own. One arm hangs wrong at the elbow. His shirt is torn open at one side. I don't need a closer view. They carry him off the porch and into the yard. One of the new men checks him, then looks at Red Shirt and shakes his head once. No speech after that. They wrap the body in a tarp and tie it to the cart. The woman stands apart, jaw tight, shotgun across her chest, eyes sweeping the camp. Not grief the way movies do it. Work pushed through a hard minute. Then she spits and says, "We clean this place out or we leave it." Red Shirt looks toward the drain side of camp when she says it. That gets my attention all over again. They start sweeping at the water point and laundry slab, ground sign, boxes, flush valve, brush lines. The shorter man is the one doing the reading. He sees too much. He crouches where I lifted the valve lid 2 days ago, where I dragged silt sacks after the storm, where weeds don't stand exactly the same way twice after a person brushes through them enough times. He doesn't have the full picture. He has enough to know one person has been working the area on and off. He turns slowly toward the drainage ditch, looking not at the camp now, but at the parts a hidden person would use. I'm already moving by then. I slip down from the bamboo rise, cut behind the mess hall, and reach the drain from the north side, where brush hides the mouth. Underground, I drag 2 sacks of wet silt to the entrance bend and dump them across my old crawl line. Then, I pull in dead branches from outside and wedge them at the first turn so the drain looks more collapsed from the inside than it is. If the crew reaches the mouth and shines a light in, I want him to see a filthy constriction that looks half-washed shut. I leave only a shoulder gap low on the right where I can still force my way through. After that, I move the vent line. The old outlet crack near the ditch has been running too well for too long. Anybody reading scent or warm soil on cool evenings might catch it. I disconnect half the tubing and reroute the final section deeper into the wall void toward a smaller root crack that exits farther down the ditch under a tangle of reeds. Airflow gets worse. Good enough. Hidden beats efficient. By noon, the crew has found the old catchment location behind the mess hall and the empty ground where the drum used to sit. One of the new men says, "Somebody's here." The woman answers, "Or was." Red shirt says nothing for a while. Then he points toward the drainage side. "Check the low ground." That sends all the blood in my body into my hands and feet. I don't get the luxury of being scared underground. Underground I sort tasks. Water on my belt, pistol within reach, pry bar at the choke point, shot count in my head, 3 magazines, none full. They don't find the drain on the first pass. Brush and storm trash do the work for me there. They do find the ditch path where runoff has been easier to walk since the storm. One of the men moves through the reeds within 15 yards of my new vent outlet. I hear stems snapping and mud sucking under his boots. He doesn't stop. He keeps going, circles back to drier ground, and curses the ditch. Good. Mud and bugs still win some fights without help. The problem comes from somewhere else. The shorter man reaches the fuel bladder frame and starts kicking through the weed mat around the slab. Not random. He has picked up a pattern. Places with old structure hide people's cash lines. He works his boot under roots, turns over boards, checks the shadow under the frame, then stops and squats. One of the weeds I pulled days ago has grown back lighter than the others. Tiny sign. Tiny sign is enough when a person is looking hard. He digs with the tip of his pry bar and exposes the old hollow where my first tin used to sit. It's empty now. That saves me. It does not settle him. He looks toward Red Shirt and says, "Someone used this." Red Shirt comes over and studies the hole. The woman leaves the ditch line and joins them. All three look around the slab, then out toward the brush, then back across the camp. Not at one building, at everything. The camp has shifted in their heads from salvage site to occupied ground. They leave before evening, taking the broad man's wrapped body with them. That should have been the end of it if fear and profit balanced clean. It isn't the end. Anger is now mixed in with the math, and anger makes people come back when they should leave. I spend the rest of the day deepening the second route in the shaft and testing how fast I can move from the main chamber to the panel and up 3 rungs with a pack. Slow, too slow. The ladder brackets are awkward and the shaft pinches at the shoulders. I scrape skin off both elbows on the first try. Better scrape today than stuck tomorrow. On the 4th night, rain comes again, lighter than the first storm, but enough to cool the ground. Cooler ground helps scent travel in strange ways. It also brings sound farther. I hear the crew before I expect them. 2 people only this time, moving near the ditch after dark with almost no talk. One beam flickers through reeds, low and covered. They aren't scavenging. They're testing whether someone uses the drainage side after sunset. I lie flat in the crawl space with one hand over the vent seam and don't move a finger. The light passes once over the outer debris and keeps going. Then it comes back and lingers. Someone out there has seen the drainage pattern, the hidden path, or the faint clean edge where a person squeezes through brush more often than the weather would do on its own. The beam leaves. 20 seconds later I hear a soft scrape at the drain mouth. Not entry, probe, maybe a stick, maybe the tip of a pry bar. It pushes against the branch tangle I packed into the bend and stops. Then a voice, low, the shorter man. Collapsed. A woman answers. "Maybe," he says. "No room past that." He doesn't sound convinced. His footsteps move away. I wait in the dark long after they leave, then crawl out and make the bend look worse. More wet silt, more broken concrete, more branch tangle. I leave my own shoulder gap buried low and narrow enough that I have to exhale and wriggle to get through. That's dangerous if I need speed. The camp has moved past speed. It's at concealment or nothing. Morning brings heat and one small win. In the brush near the culvert cache, I catch a feral chicken in one of the wire loops I reset 2 days ago. Small bird, half-starved, feathers patchy from mites. But meat is meat. I carry it deep into brush outside the perimeter to deal with it where the camp won't smell it. By the time I get back underground, the sun is up and my shirt is soaked through. The cut on my knuckle looks better. Less swelling. Good. One problem leaves the table. Others take its place. I use the bird fat and bones to make a stronger broth than I've had since before the camp. I boil it in 2 short runs so the weak vent line won't betray me. While the pot works, I sort the papers from the binder and the pages I pulled from a drawer in the admin building on my first day. Most are worthless. Molded schedules, broken supply lists. One stack catches my eye only after I scrape the pages apart with a knife tip. Triage overflow, handwritten bed counts, dates from the early collapse months, names crossed out, one note in block letters, no transfer, hold until road clears. Another, chains authorized on C-wing exterior after breach, no signature, no explanation beyond that. I read the same line twice, C-wing exterior. That gives the chained barracks their history in one sentence. Overflow turned into holding. Holding turned into something else. No wonder the buildings never got cleared room by room. Nobody had the people for it once the roads died. The papers don't help me survive the next hour, but they settle one thing in my head. The camp's danger isn't random. It grew out of exhausted people sealing a problem behind doors when they had no transport, no staff, no clean exit. That means some rooms may still be packed tighter than I guessed. It means one bad breach could spill more than 2 or 3 shaded ones. It means any plan that uses those buildings has to stay small and controlled. The crew comes back in the late afternoon with patience instead of speed. Only 3 this time. Red shirt, the woman, and the shorter man. No cart. No salvage tools except one pry bar and the shotgun. Search load, not workload. They start wide, circling the perimeter inside the fence and checking every place a person might hide food, water, or tools. They look under slabs. They look in culverts. They poke brush. The shorter man studies the ground near the admin block, then heads towards the parade ground drain. I'm on the rise again, too far to stop him, close enough to see that he's finally put the whole pattern together. He doesn't charge the drain. He doesn't even go straight to it. He circles downwind first, checks the ditch, checks the brush behind the inlet, then kneels by the mouth and looks at the debris field around it. His hand moves through the leaves, reading what water placed and what hands placed. He holds there long enough that I know he sees the difference. Then he stands and motions the others over. The woman says, "Sewer?" He answers, "Drain. Could connect under." Red shirt crouches, studies the choke I built and says, "You think someone crawls that?" The shorter man points at the low right side where my hidden gap sits under mud. "Maybe not now." They don't enter. Good. They mark it instead. Red shirt cuts a strip from an orange feed sack and ties it to a reed near the mouth. The woman watches the yard while he does it. The shorter man walks a slow circle around the drain, looking for a second access line. I back off the rise and go underground before I lose my nerve to act. Inside the crawl space, I don't waste time debating whether to stay hidden and hope. A marker on the drain means they're coming back with light, rope, and enough patience to clear the choke. My best shot isn't to stand inside the tunnel. My best shot is to make the camp cost them more than it's worth before they ever start digging at the mouth. The route for that runs through the utility shaft. I take the pry bar, the maintenance tags, a coil of cord, and one small wrench, and climb up the shaft to the frozen hatch. Instead of forcing it, I work along the wall line near the top until I find where one old conduit leaves the shaft and heads toward the western barracks. Conduit carries vibration better than open air. I learned that years ago in supply yards where one forklift hit traveled through steel rack and woke a whole aisle of loose material. Here, with shaded ones tied to floors and walls, vibration is a tool if I keep it measured. I tie the wrench head to the cord, loop it over the conduit support, and build myself a crude striker I can pull from the shaft lip without standing in the open. It takes 3 tests to get the force right. First pull is too soft. I barely hear the tap. Second is too hard and echoes through the shaft in a way I don't like. Third lands clean, metal on conduit, sharp, dry, and short. I wait. Nothing. I pull again after 10 seconds, then a third time on the same rhythm. Far off through concrete, I hear one answer from a barracks wall. Good. The line carries. I climb down, return to the rise, and watch the marker on the drain move in the evening breeze. The crew is gone for now. They'll come back at dawn or sooner. I need them close to the worst buildings before I use the conduit. Too early and the camp goes noisy while they're still outside the fence. Too late, and they're at the drain mouth with light in my face. Dark settles. I eat cold. I fill every container I can from the filtered batch and the settled brown water from the standpipe line, then start moving the heaviest items into the shaft pocket and the deeper wall niches. The chamber I built for myself over 4 days stops feeling like a shelter and starts feeling like a place I may have to abandon with half my things in it. I don't fight that feeling. Places go bad. Roads go bad. People go bad. The ones who last are the ones who stop expecting one good hide to stay good. They come before sunrise. 4 this time. Red shirt. The woman. The shorter man. One new man with a headlamp strapped over a baseball cap and a coil of rope across his chest. They move straight to the drain and start pulling brush without much talk. The headlamp man lies on his stomach and shines a covered beam into the choke. The shorter man scrapes mud from the low right side. He finds the hidden gap on his second probe. I'm in the shaft by then, with the cord in one hand and the pistol tucked into my waistband, where it keeps knocking the wall every time I shift. The first taps go down the conduit toward the western barracks. 3 clean hits spaced the way my boots woke the pharmacy floor in Utuado. Tap, pause, tap, pause, tap. I wait 20 seconds. Nothing from outside. Then I do it again. Same line, same force. A faint answer comes through the camp, one of those flat wall hits from inside a building. The crew at the drain pauses. The woman turns her head toward the barracks, then looks back down. Not enough yet. I change rhythm. 2 taps. Long pause. 2 taps again on the same support. This time the answer comes larger. Something slams once inside the western barracks. Then a second structure picks it up. A chained door on C-wing bangs from within, hard and hollow. The headlamp man pushes away from the drain mouth and stands. The woman says, "Leave that. We clear the buildings first." Red shirt doesn't answer. He's looking from the drain to the barracks and doing the same math I am. Drain can wait. Active buildings can't. They split, which is what I need. The woman and red shirt head towards C-wing with the shotgun. The shorter man and headlamp man move toward the western barracks. I climb down from the shaft and slip through the main chamber into the drain bend, keeping low and slow. If I need to get out after this, the drain still matters. I set the pry bar by the choke point and crawl back toward the shaft, listening to the camp carry their footsteps. The shorter man reaches the broken window first. He stays off the porch this time and studies the dark inside. Headlamp man starts to raise his light. Then the first shaded one hits the window from within, not out of nowhere, but at the same angle I saw 2 days ago when the broad man disappeared into that room. Headlamp man jerks the beam back. Bad move. The light sweeps across the hall beyond the room and catches more shapes rising farther in, not fast, not stumbling, but standing and turning toward the repeated footfall on the porch and the light moving over the same wall line. The shorter man backs away at once and says one word, "Move." At C-wing, red shirt tests one chained door with the pry bar. The woman tells him not to. He does it anyway. The chain rattles over the pull handles, metal striking metal in a quick series that runs along the whole porch. Inside that wing, something answers from at least 2 rooms. Then a third answer comes from upstairs. The cracked window gives way all the way and drops a sheet of old glass to the porch roof below. That breaks the moment open. The woman grabs red shirt by the collar and drags him off the porch. Good call, 1 second late. The lower door starts hammering from inside in a steady pattern now. Not random hits, but bodies throwing weight at the same point the way repeated disturbance wakes them and gives them direction. The upper hallway window beside the broken one fills with a face, then another behind it, both pressed forward by whatever is packed deeper in the room. Not magic, not planning. Pressure and vibration and trapped bodies with one active line to follow. The camp goes loud in patches. Western barracks, C-wing, admin block picking up the spill. The crew has had enough. The woman starts backing toward the lane, shotgun up, eyes working between the buildings. Headlamp man does the smart thing and cuts the light. Red shirt doesn't. He tries one more look at the porch. One more angle, one more step. The shorter man slams a hand into his shoulder and shoves him back hard enough to turn him around. That shove may be what keeps him breathing. Then the first door on C-wing gives at the lower hinge. Not all the way, enough to open a black slice at the latch side and let one arm through, then a shoulder jammed behind it. The woman fires once into the gap, more to stop movement than to put anything down. The blast shakes dust off the porch roof and carries through every open structure in the camp. After that, nobody on their side tries to hold ground. They fall back fast along the center lane. Headlamp man nearly goes down at the cracked pavement near the parade ground, catches himself, and keeps moving. Red shirt looks over his shoulder twice, and once is enough for him to miss the lane break. He bangs into an old post, loses the pry bar, and leaves it. The shorter man never stops scanning the sides as he retreats. Even then, with the whole camp coming awake in ugly pockets, he's still working. That man scares me more than Red Shirt ever did. I don't chase. I don't go up top to watch from open yard. I stay where I am and listen to them clear the fence cut, then the road beyond, then nothing human after that. Only the camp answering the shot and the rattled chains and the repeated impacts from rooms that have caught the line and won't let go yet. For the next hour, I manage the fallout. The drain choke gets reset one more time from inside. The shaft supplies stay where they are. I move the pistol, ammo, and water to the shaft and leave only throwaway things in the main chamber. Then, I sit at the base of the shaft and wait for the building noise to settle, counting the gaps between impacts the way I used to count spacing between convoy trucks through mountain roads. Order calms me more than hope ever did. The camp quiets by degrees. C-wing goes from steady pounding to singles. The admin block door drags a few times, then stops. Western barracks gives one last hard hit at the broken window and falls silent. Birds take a long time to come back. When they do, they avoid the center yard and stick to the bamboo and the ditch trees. Good enough sign that the open ground isn't moving anymore. I wait until full dark before I climb out and make a fast inspection loop. The orange marker on the drain is gone, torn loose in the retreat. The pry bar Red Shirt dropped lies in the lane where he left it. I take it. C-wing's first lower door hangs by one hinge, and the chain is stretched enough that nobody sane would stand near it. The broken upper window now leaves the room behind it open to weather and birds, but not open enough for a whole spill. Western barracks still has shapes pressed in the dark beyond the broken window. No sign of the crew, no second team, no light from the road. At the fence cut I crouch and read the ground with the moon giving me half enough light. 4 people out, fast, uneven. One slipped in mud. One dropped to a knee and pushed off. No sign they stopped outside to argue or regroup. The road beyond shows no waiting cart. They came light and left lighter. I should feel relief there. What I feel is work. The camp isn't mine now any more than it was yesterday. It has gotten harder to use and louder when pushed. The drain has been marked and almost found. C-wing is one bad storm from opening wider. The western barracks now has one window broken enough that more movement may bleed out onto the porch if rain and heat keep loosening the frame. My good little hidden life under the camp has lasted less than a week before the outside world put a knife into it. That doesn't surprise me. It tells me what the next days are for. Back underground. I light the smallest flame I can manage and boil 1 cup of water. Half goes to a packet of rice and broth. Half goes to cleaning the scrape on my elbows from the shaft and washing mud out of the new pry bar grip before rust takes it worse. I eat slow and think through what stays and what moves. The answer comes simple by the end of the meal. The main chamber becomes a workroom and decoy. The shaft pocket becomes the heart of the shelter. Water stays split. Food stays split. Heat only on cold nights. Catchment moved again at first light. Morning comes with no crew on the road, no voices, no metal taps from outside. I don't trust that piece. I use it. First job is the catchment. I dismantle the visible gutter pieces for good and start a ground catch in the wash north of camp using tarp, poles, and a shallow filtered basin that sits low under reeds. Harder to collect from, much harder to spot from 10 yards. After that, I shift the cassava patch. Not the plants themselves, the attention around them. I rough up more ground in 3 false spots near the fence and leave the real patch looking neglected again. Second job is the shaft. I widen the panel opening below by shaving mortar from one corner and padding the edge with cloth so I can pass a loaded bag through without tearing it open. Then, I rig a sling from cord and old webbing to haul heavier items up rather than trying to climb with them. It's ugly. It works. By noon, the shaft pocket holds more food than the main chamber, my best bandages, spare matches, and the papers I chose to keep. The chamber below holds dirt sacks, junk, one empty tub, and a few tools. If someone ever forces the drain and reaches the first room, I want him thinking he found a failed hide used months ago, not the center of my life. On the second day after the retreat, I finally hear the crew again. Far road, one motorcycle, no approach. The engine comes up from the south, idles for maybe 20 seconds, then heads away. Recon at distance. No commitment. Good. They're not eager anymore. That's what I needed. Not to beat them. To make the place expensive in time, noise, injury and attention. Men who strip government sites do not stay loyal to one bad job when other sites remain to loot. I spent that afternoon reading more of the triage papers while I sort bolts and wire into jars. Bed counts drop over 3 pages, then stop. One page carries only room numbers and check marks. Another has names of staff on half shifts that cut off midweek. One final note in pencil sits on the back of a supply requisition. No fuel for transfer. Hold in place. Secure exterior. That was the camp's end in 6 words. No fuel. No transfer. Hold in place. People upstairs made that decision on paper. People down here lived inside it until the doors went quiet or didn't. The papers don't make me sentimental. They do make me careful with C-Wing. A person can use danger without pretending he controls it. I got lucky once. Luck is not a system, so I mark the buildings in my head again. Motorpool remains lowest risk if entered by day and kept shallow. Admin block is wake-prone. Western barracks is breached and unstable. C-Wing is off-limits except at distance. Mess hall remains my salvage room, but only in short visits, and never twice along the same floor line, without a pause and a route change. Those are the new camp rules. Break them, and the place collects payment. 3 mornings pass without the crew crossing the fence. I don't waste the time. I deepen the wash catchment, trap 1 more rat, trade a half day of labor for 2 onions and a handful of coffee from a farm woman named Selena who runs a hidden yard 2 ridges east. And I never tell her exactly where I sleep. She doesn't ask. Good people left know better than to ask that kind of question. On the way back from her place, I take the long route and confirm the crew's trail ribbons have been cut from the south road. That matters more than the onions. On the 6th evening after the retreat, I climb the bamboo rise and look over the camp again. The admin door hangs open now, finally worked loose by pressure and time. Nothing stands in the frame. C-Wing's lower chain sags. Western barracks window stays dark. My camp is not cleaner. It is rougher, stranger, and harder for strangers to read at a glance. That helps me more than a neat shelter ever would. I head back down before full dark, stepping where I know the ground holds. At the drain, I pause and listen to the ditch frogs and the bamboo knocking in the breeze. No engines, no voices, no tool sound. Under the camp, the shaft pocket waits with water, food, a blanket, and a place to sit with my back against concrete, where no one above would guess a person is there. It isn't comfort. It isn't security. It's one more version of staying ahead of collapse for another stretch of days. I go underground, pull the panel half shut behind me, and start rebuilding the place around the lesson the crew paid to teach me. Nothing out here stays hidden once and stays hidden forever. Roots have to move, heat has to move, caches have to move. Even the center of the shelter has to move when the ground around it gets read too well. I set the new pry bar across my knees, sort tomorrow's tasks in my head, and let the camp settle overhead one sound at a time. And that's where we'll stop for now. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me how the story hit you, what moments worked, what didn't, and what you'd want to hear next. And a big thank you to everyone supporting the channel. You keep this project alive. Until next time, Survivor. Jack's Nightmares, signing off.